So the question asked is the impact of currency depreciation on the insurance industry. It's a very interesting dynamics that happens in insurance and in the economy, where whenever a currency depreciates, what happens is when the local currency value goes down compared to an external currency, the assets of the local country are being depreciated. So they become cheaper compared to what the foreigners can invest in. So suddenly a property that is in Sri Lanka that was maybe like $1 million earlier becomes cheaper and becomes say $750,000 because of the currency depreciation. In insurance, there are a couple of dynamics that happens. One is that from the assets that we insure, for example, if we are insuring a motor car, we insure it at a particular point of time. And at that time, the value of the car could be say $10,000. When the rupee depreciates, that value could actually become say $15,000. Now, if at that time the accident happens, so there's a claim, the amount of claim that we'll pay is much more than the insurance value that we had anticipated. So that's one of the dangers that we have in when a currency depreciates quite significantly, as it has in Sri Lankan economy for some time now. The other aspect is really like Sri Lanka is a very import dependent economy. So a lot of imports, whether it is motor cars, whether it is food stuff, whether it is books, get imported from rest of the world. Now, each time an import happens now with the rupee depreciating, it becomes more expensive to import it, which becomes a bit of a constraint for the local economy. In an ideal world, if Sri Lanka did not have to import anything, currency going up or down would not matter at all. But because we are so dependent on imports from outside, each time the value of rupee goes down compared to say the dollar, all imports become more expensive. The good part is that exports become cheaper. So whatever Sri Lanka has to send out suddenly becomes cheaper compared to the dollar value. Similarly, the assets in Sri Lanka, for example, if you look at all the apartments that are coming up in Sri Lanka, the ability of a foreigner to invest in that becomes better because suddenly that asset value has become cheaper compared to his currency. So these are the different dynamics of currency devaluation for the economy and for the insurance industry. It does impact our claim cost, like I mentioned in the first case. It does impact the assets we insure because suddenly there might be lesser imports, so we may not have much to insure here locally. But at the same time, it does promote exports, which is a good thing for the economy going ahead. Just a quick history on insurance, and this is a fascinating history because insurance actually started off with a concept called bottomry. Now, bottomry was something that started in London when ships were, and in fact in Portugal and other countries which were the initial explorers of the world. So when ships were going out to explore into the world from these places, they used to get funded by different investors. And these investors used to say that, okay, I'm going to give you like 5 rupees. And with that 5 rupees, I'm going to have 5% of whatever you bring back. And when the ships used to come back from countries like Sri Lanka or India or other places, used to come back with spices and all that. And all these spices used to be stored in the bottom part of the ship. So when the investor used to say, okay, here's 5 rupees for you, and in return, if you come back safely, you give me 5% of your bottom. Now that was originally the start of insurance. So what insurance really did was fund and fuel sensible optimism. It allowed money to be shifted from one pocket to people who were like taking risks, like were entrepreneurs or were explorers, and it allowed that money to be shifted to these entrepreneurs and explorers. And fund their optimism in terms of exploring new things. So that's the start of insurance. So it's a fascinating industry. In any economy, insurance plays a very, very critical part because it has, like I said, without insurance, many entrepreneurs will not be able to take the risk that they do now. Many factories would not be able to happen. Like we've read in the one of the impacts of COVID has been the amount of claims that insurance companies have had to pay on events. So even events like things like Wimbledon or Olympics, all are insured because the costs entailed in doing such events are so expensive that without insurance, the funding will not happen. So that's the key role of insurance in terms of making an economy much more buoyant, allowing enterprise to prosper, allowing optimism to happen. Of course, the other very important role of insurance is it gives a price to risk. Like, for example, like if there is a certain part of Sri Lanka which is exposed to floods, insurance companies will over time say that, I'm sorry, I will not be able to insure that. Now that is a signal to the government or some other organization to say, okay, how do I reduce the risk of that event? So these are things that the insurance company does. And of course, on the other side, on the simpler side is that we create jobs. It is a profession that is globally recognized. So anyone who knows insurance in Sri Lanka would be very welcome to do insurance in Florida. It's the same trade. We are very, very fungible. We can go from one country to the other, and it's exactly the same thing. So it's a fascinating business, and I would really encourage all young people to look at insurance as a serious profession. Thank you.